Mental asylums, inhuman experiments on human bodies have always been among the themes that many game developers are interested in exploring and developing. But what if a mental institution closely associated with experiments was linked to witches and black magic? If you're curious, today we'll explore this story through the game title Withering Rooms. Before we begin, I hope you can give me a like, share, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell if you find this video enjoyable. And let's get started. Withering Rooms is a horror mystery adventure game developed by Moonless, Formless and published by Reup Games on April 5th. The game features old-school 2.5D graphics with a side-scrolling gameplay reminiscent of titles like Little Nightmares. In Withering Rooms, you play as a 15-year-old Nightingale Williams, who is brought to the private mental institution Mostyn by her father for treatment. However, unlike stories revolving around inhuman experiments commonly found in mental asylums, Withering Rooms offers a mysterious, eerie experience with more shades of dark magic, with a playtime of about 2 hours and 30 minutes, consisting of 4 main chapters and 3 different endings. Most of your time in Withering Room is spent wandering around, completing tasks and facing bosses. But since you click on this video, you're probably curious about what happened to Nightingale, right? So, without further ado, here's a summary and analysis of the storyline from my perspective. The story of Withering Rooms begins on a night in 1892, when Nightingale is sent by her father to the private mental institution Mostyn for psychological treatment. Mostyn is situated on a small hill between the street Ely Church and the abandoned Rinbach Monastery in the town of Monmouth, Wales, about 2 miles from the Wales-England border. Constructed by Alfred Mostyn in 1869, it's no surprise that this place is considered a historic site with many years of history. Initially intended as a retreat, Mostyn became a resting place for American physicians during wars, a quarantine camp for black victims, and ultimately a private mental asylum as it is today. At the time of the game's events, Mostyn is managed by Dr. Robert Blackett and his daughter Margaret. Beside Nightingale, the institution also treats 3 other patients: Millie Earl Wood, Emma Bannon, and Becca Mason, who were admitted a year before Nightingale in 1891, except for Becca, who arrived just a few months earlier. Following a peculiar tradition at this institution, new patients are required to spend the first night at the gatehouse area under the supervision of hospital staff, and it's during the first night of Nightingale step into the world of dreams. Similar to Mostyn, this place is teeming with strange creatures, magic, and witches. During her exploration, Nightingale encounters other patients and Margaret, Dr. Robert's daughter. Through Margaret's works, we learn that the dream world is a mysterious spiritual phenomenon of Mostyn. It's akin to a parallel universe where humans are immortal. Every week spent here equates to a night in the real world, an ideal place for people to fulfill their desires. However, Margaret reveals that there is currently no specific way to leave this place. Human souls enter the dream world while they sleep and remain there until one day they suddenly wake up. Those fortunate enough to escape The dream world will have no memory of it, while the rest will be trapped indefinitely. Although they can die in their dreams, the bodies in the real world will gradually decay, and eventually they will be consumed by this world, turning into the monsters we see in the game. As Nightingale dwells deeper into the dream world, she learns more mythical magic, but also uncovers horrifying truths. In the past, Mostyn belonged to her twin sisters, Peter Mostyn and Priscilla Mostyn. Both were daughters of the former superintendent and had a passionate obsession with ancient magic. The ultimate goal of the two sisters was to reunite with their late mother, but at that time, philosophical and scientific reasoning had begun to flourish. People no longer believed in magic, witches, or ancient superstitions, so all the efforts of the Mostyn sisters went unrewarded. By 1874, during a chance visit to the city of Constantinople in Byzantium, they encountered an ancient statue and witnesses real magic. That statue was the origin of the dream world, with two rubies on its eye, capable of recording images of people and everything around them, creating a parallel world that existed alongside the real world. Even after that, they could continue to exist in this world. Delighted by this discovery, the sisters decided to purchase the statue from the merchant at a hefty price, but their joy was short-lived as sorrow soon followed. Upon returning to Byzantium, both their father and Peter's sister fell ill and passed away just 15 days later. Left alone suddenly, Peter sank into alcohol until he met his deceased sister, Priscilla, in the dream world. After conversation with his deceased sister, Peter brought the stone statue to live at the Mostyn institution, loved by their father. The more he looked into it, the richer the world inside the statue became. It was for this reason that the sisters decided they would create a wonderful dream paradise for everyone together. However, everything was shattered when Dr. Robert and his son appeared. In 1881, 3 years after Dr. Robert and his son moved to the Mostyn institution, Peter died under mysterious circumstances. The police suspected he had a heart failure, but they also suspected Dr. Robert and his son of murdering him to seize his property. However, due to lack of concrete evidence, Dr. Robert and his daughter were never arrested. Both of them later took over the Mostyn institution and turned it into the current private mental asylum. When encountering Peter in the dream world, he would tell Nightingale that Robert and his henchmen were trying to turn this land into a nightmare and hoped she could help him. The only way to destroy the dream world is to break the deity statue here. However, things will never be easy. The deeper you delve into understanding, you discover that the Nightingale you're controlling isn't the same as the one from 1892. The dream world not only exists alongside the real world, but also involves the presence of many different timelines. After each operating cycle, the deity statue will reset the world, creating different time periods and different versions. You can use the ship invented by Peter and his sister to move between these time periods. Find a way to stop Robert. Returning to Nightingale, as I mentioned, the dream world has the ability to create different versions. The original Nightingale was actually brainwashed by Robert and became one of his loyal henchmen. However, because Robert abused Nightingale too much, he caused her to be comatose in the real world and imprisoned in the dream world. The Nightingale you're controlling now is the version created when the world reset cyclically. which is why at the beginning of the game, you see yourself appearing in the dream world rather than Mostyn in the real world. Therefore, the current goal of the main character is to defeat Robert, continuing to search for Robert's whereabouts. You learn that more than 10 years have passed in the real world. Mostyn was exposed by the local authorities, and the parents of the comatose children demanded compensation, forcing Margaret to borrow money to pay off the debt. Mostyn was closed in 1910 after more than 20 years of operation. Margaret herself, after struggling with the debt while her father was immersed in the dream world, decided to completely withdraw from running the institution. At the same time, she decided to throw the statue into the sea so that no one could find it or be drawn into this world again. At the end of the game, Nightingale will encounter Robert in his blood castle, but before the battle begins, the Doctor has already passed away, and the mastermind behind everything now reveals herself. That person is Priscilla, the twin sister. She has been controlling and manipulating Robert like a puppet to do her bidding. Now, as her ideal dream world is about to be complete, Robert has outlived his usefulness. Priscilla and Nightingale will engage in a fierce battle at the end of the game, and the main character obviously emerge as the victor. Margaret will appear at this point, and Nightingale will have two choices: to stay and become the queen of the dream world, or to use magic to destroy the statue left by Peter to permanently destroy the dream world. If Nightingale chooses to become the queen, she will stay in the dream world and build it into a land according to her imagination. However, if she chooses to destroy this place and return to the real world, Nightingale will wake up in 1916, now a woman in her 40s. She reunites with all the characters at the Mostyn institution and watches it burn down in flames. During the gameplay, Nightingale also has the option to complete the fusion ritual between the dream and the real worlds. It will transform into a strange London land where life never ends and everything lasts indefinitely. And that concludes all that happened in the game Withering Rooms. However, there are still a few mysteries I haven't addressed, so next, let's explore them together with me. Firstly, let's talk about the origin of the statue that appears in the game. The fragments of documents you find during the exploration of the Mostyn institution reveal that the statue dates back to prehistoric times, but no one knows who created it. Most likely ancient witches in each cycle of the dream world. Blood from animals or humans is usually offered to provide power to it. About 200 years before the birth of Jesus, the statue drifted to Byzantium. The people of that time came up with the idea of utilizing the dream world to build a pay-to-enter amusement park. But since Byzantium became the new capital of the Roman Emperor Constantine, the statue gradually fell into obscurity because many thought it was a demonic artifact. By the Fourth Crusade, at the end of the 13th century, the existence of the statue had almost disappeared and no one knew about it anymore. Over the next 600 years, no one knew where the statue had gone or what had happened to it. At some point in the past, it fell into the hands of a merchant, and eventually, it was sold to the two sisters, Peter and Priscilla, in 1874. Next is about what Robert did with the dream world. I'm not sure if I missed something, but that detail is relatively vague. In the game, we only know that Robert hired someone named Butcher's surgeon to assist him in his research experiments. Butcher's task is basically to collect fresh human bodies in the dream world, dissect them, and bring them to Robert. If you pay attention to Robert's appearance, you can see that his head is carefully bandaged. It's not hard to recognize that he might be performing brain surgery experiments in this world, which was also confirmed by one of Mostyn's patients, Becca. It can be seen that, in a way, Robert has used the dream world to conduct experiments that he cannot freely conduct in real life. Turning this place into blood-filled area gives Robert a sense of power, making him want to take ownership of it for himself. The fact that he keeps patients overnight at the gatehouse when they first arrive at Mostyn shows that he wants to seek more experimental materials to enrich his own kingdom. But that's just my personal speculation, so it could be right or wrong. So please, leave your comment below to let me know more about your opinions. Now, before we end the video, I hope you can give me a thumbs up, share, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss out on our weekly uploads. And I'm MJ Horror Studio. Thank you for being here. Robert's wicked nature is also confirmed by his daughter, Margaret, in the game. Margaret's mother is Chinese, and she was born during the Opium War. Robert claimed that her mother died on the delivery table, but to this day, Margaret still doesn't believe it. Furthermore, he is extremely controlling, trying to force Margaret to practice the piano day and night in the hope that his daughter would be as talented as his idol composer. But in reality, Margaret says what he idolizes is the sense of control, standing above others. As for why the twin sisters, Priscilla began to deviate at the end of the game, Margaret believed it was a manifestation of someone who had been devoured by the dream world. Priscilla believes that as the first person to set foot in this place, she has the right to control the entire world here. She incited Robert's evil tendencies to satisfy herself without considering the consequences for others. The story of Withering Rooms, in my opinion, revolves around fate, the desire for power, and the mockery of some individuals who pursue blind faith. Through the tragedies of Priscilla, Peter, Robert, and Nightingale, we can see how terrifying things can become if humans abuse power beyond their control.